Hey guys, and welcome to the Kurima podcast where we talk about business, finance, entrepreneurship, and real estate. I'm your host, Jason Kurima, and I have a very special guest today, Josh Manning. Josh, it's a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, man. Glad to be here.
Yeah, man, you're killing it in the real estate space. You got like so many projects you're doing and some big developments. I'm just curious, like, how did you get into that originally?
Yeah, so it's kind of a long story. So went to college kind of as like a non-traditional student. So didn't go. I went for like one semester right out of high school. Hated it. Was like, college is not for me. So I just started kind of working some like dead end jobs, and kind of just moved around from place to place for a couple of years. And honestly, I had this boss that was killing it. And I was kind of working side by side with him, and I was doing everything that he was doing. And I remember just thinking in my head, I'm like, man, like, I know I can do better than this guy. So I just decided that I was going to go back to school and get my education, because that was kind of what you needed to get into a role that he was in. Mm-hmm. So like around, I don't know, I was probably 20 when I enrolled back in college. And I just went all in, man. I was taking, 18 to 21 hours every semester. I went during the summer. I got a 4-year degree in 3 years. Started my master's, but didn't finish it. And so when I was doing that, I got an internship for a large commercial construction company. And I started there as an intern and kind of just moved through the roles and positions there. And so that's really kind of like where my passion and stuff for construction came from, was from that job. And it's actually kind of funny because it's not anything that I wanted to do. I honestly took the job because I was in a graduate level internship class and I needed to have an intern.
Oh, wow.
So my goal all along was, I was like, I'm just going to take this class. I'm going to get the credits that I need. I'm going to write the paper, and then I'm going to leave this job. And that didn't happen. I ended up staying there, and so it was great. That's where I kind of, like I said, I learned my passion for construction. That's where really I gained a lot of my knowledge. And so I kind of rolled through the different positions. So I started as intern, went to project engineer, went to project manager, and then vice president. So they were a couple hundred, employees, 20-ish million in revenue. And so I ran finance, operations, project management, basically all the realms of the company. And so I think that's really like kind of where I learned like how to run a business and how to manage people and how to do all that stuff. So during, I don't know, probably it was probably second year into that role, a buddy of mine reached out, and he was a real estate agent. And so he reached out and he says, hey, I'm going to put together this seminar where I want to try to teach the average person to do this thing called the BRRRR method. I'd never heard of the BRRRR method, didn't know what it was. Really, to be honest with you, wasn't even interested in like investing in real estate.
Wow.
I really kind of had no desire for it. So he says, hey, I just want some like-minded business people to come to this, watch me pitch this thing. So I don't know, there's probably 10, 15 of us. He bought us lunch. He brought in all the people that were going to talk on this thing. They did it as if we were like, potential buyers. And so I listened to this thing, and, we went into like the whole BRRRR method and how that works. And I mean, anybody listening to this podcast is probably pretty familiar with the BRRRR method. Yeah. And so I listened to this, and I'm like, man, you can really do this. Like, you can buy these properties, you can fix them up, you can rehab them, then rent them, refinance it, and pull your money back out of it. Right. And so afterwards, I kind of talked to him about it a little bit, and I said, hey, I'd be a little bit more interested in deep diving into like how this works and all this kind of stuff. So he reached out a couple weeks later, and he said, hey, what if we partnered? Like, he's an agent, and he said, what if I find the deals? I'll run the ARVs, I'll do all that kind of stuff. I'll put them together, and then you just run the construction. And I kind of thought about it, and I was like, I really don't think it's something I'm interested in. I don't know. It's just not something I want to do. And I said, I don't want to mess with tenants. I don't want to, collect rents. I don't want to, I just don't really want to do any of that stuff. And so he kind of like, kept following up with me every couple of weeks and was like, hey, have you thought about this anymore? Like, I really think it's a good idea. And the truth is, he just caught me on the right day. And I think I was at Lowe's, like walking down, I was like working on a project, and he calls me and he's like, hey, you thought about buying any houses with me anymore? And I said, you know what? Let's do it. Let's buy one. I said, I want to do a couple things before we do that. I want to like figure out the financing. I want to kind of learn. I literally knew nothing about buying real estate. So I called one of my buddies that was a banker, and I said, hey, so-and-so wants me to partner with him. This is what we're going to do. Can I buy you lunch? Will you teach me like how you underwrite a deal, how this would work? Like, so I can understand some of the financing, like doing the construction and the development, like getting the project done and the rehabbing, buying the materials, that was easy. But I didn't understand any of the finances or any of that. So a couple of days later, we go to lunch with him. He sits down, he explains to me like how I should look at a deal and underwrite it, and then how the bank will look at it and underwrite it. So I just told my friend, I'm like, hey, from now on, like that should be how we look at these deals, how we underwrite these deals. Is off of the bank's criteria. So when we go to refinance these things out, it's super simple, right? Yeah. So that's kind of how we started. A couple days later, he brings us he brings me a property. I'll never forget it. It was 920 North Warren. It was in Springfield. It was a 2-bedroom, 1 bath. We bought it for like $60,000. We went in. It was like, it's kind of hard. It's like it wasn't very wide. It was a really deep house, and it had like a wall that divided the living room into like the dining room, and the dining room into the kitchen. So we knocked all those walls down, and then in the back we added a half bath. So it was actually a 3-bedroom. So it was 3-bedroom with 1.5 baths. We knocked all the walls down. We did this real fancy kitchen with subway tile, and I think we spent like $20,000, I think is about right. So, we were $80,000 into this house. It appraised for like $140,000. We cash out, refied $20,000. At the time, the rate environment was unbelievable. So, we were getting like refining these houses at like 4% or under 4%. You couldn't lose at that time. And we did all the work in like, I don't know, 2 weeks.
Wow,
so,
that was really fast.
Yeah, and so because that's always been my strong suit has been the rehab, and so we went through, bought the house, rehabbed it, finished it. So we're $80,000 in it. We get a loan for $100,000. We cash out refi. We both make $10,000 in 2 weeks, and we rent the house for like $1,095. Someone moves in, and we're cash flowing like $300 a month. Wow. And so I'm like, holy cow! Like this is like, there's a lot of money that can be made in this deal. Mm-hmm. And so I learned, I like got really excited about it really quick. So then just fast forward, he's like, well, let's do another one. So then we bought like 2 houses pretty much back to back. And so we started buying in July of that year. And I think we did 8 or 9. I can't remember exactly what it was. We did like 8 or 9 houses that year. Same thing. We would burr every one of them. We would cash out, refi the money, and the first like 9 or 10, whatever, like we would just split the funds, right? So we just cash out, refi it, pay ourselves, and then just hold the thing and roll on. So then the next year, like we got super legit. We opened up like actual like company checking accounts. We filed LLCs. We got all this stuff set up. We got the right insurance. We got workers' comp. We decided like, okay, we're going to do this and we're going to scale this company. So then we stopped cash out, refi to pay ourselves, and we just put all that money back into the business. Yeah. And not everyone was home runs, but for the most part, we did pretty well on them. So then that second year we did 50 homes. So it was pretty big scale to go from like 7 to 50.
That's incredible, dude. Like that's pretty much unheard of.
Yeah, it was. It was crazy. I mean, it still is. I mean, that's the volume that we do now. This year wasn't as much. I think like you and I were talking the other day. I think when it counted, we've done like 42. But I've done so many make readies and bigger development that's kind of taken a little bit of my focus off of the houses.
Yeah. So you have you have a $30 million development you're doing, right? And a $7.5 million development?
No, I've got about $30 million of developments in progress.
Okay.
So it's broken up over, so I've got a 36 unit apartment complex that's coming out of the ground. That's a $7.5 million development.
Yeah.
I've got a, what I would kind of call like a pocket neighborhood. I bought like a 2-acre parcel kind of by OTC in Springfield, off of a wholesaler that was trying to sell it as, 3 houses in this. It was like a package, like, hey, you can buy these 3 houses and fix them up, and there's a couple lots that come with it. So I bought the whole thing, rezoned it, combined all the lots, bulldozed the 3 houses, and we're putting in kind of like a private neighborhood that's going to have 12 duplexes. So it'll be 24 units. It's gated. It's got its own private drive that runs through the middle. And then I worked with the city on that, was able to get a 25-year tax abatement deal. And they actually helped me out a lot on it. They vacated some roads. They gave me some property. City utilities cut in on some of the utility costs on it. So that's like a $4.5 million development. So I've got the 36 unit, and I've got that, and then I've got a 100-unit apartment complex off of Battlefield across from Carver that will start probably March or April of next year, and that'll be, I don't have final cost, but somewhere between $16 and $20 million just in that. So between those three projects right there, I've got 7.5 that's coming out of the ground. I'm coming out of the ground on the duplex projects, another 4.5, and then the $16 to $20 million apartment complex after that. Plus, we will still flip, between 40 and 50 houses. So another, that's probably another $5 to $7 million. And then that doesn't include, the make readies and stuff like that we do on our multifamily projects. So I do some other aspects of the business is the or property management. And so for our clients, I make ready all the units. I also make ready all of the apartments that I already own. So we do our own turns and all that kind of stuff in house as well too.
Man, you're doing incredible. That's awesome.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's a lot of work, but I enjoy it. Yeah. So that's kind of, to kind of go back to your original, like, how did I get into it? That's honestly kind of, that's how I got to where I am now. Mm-hmm. So, I've done some other commercial projects we've talked about. I've got the student housing project that's in our downtown area. We bought I think it was like a 109-year-old building, gutted it and went in and completely fixed it up, turned it into student housing and then rented it out. And so that was a really fun project. That was like the first big commercial deal that I did, like where I was the owner myself. Mm-hmm. So, and
then I saw you kind of showed me some of your renderings for your 100 unit that you're building. Yep. Man, it's very luxury. It's very high end. It looks really nice.
Thank you. Yeah. It's so, kind of selfishly, part of us as investors, and as real estate developers and business owners and stuff, it's how do you establish yourself as a professional and as someone in our community that knows what they're doing, right? Mm-hmm. And the 36 unit that I'm doing right now is a very challenging piece of property. I'll get back to the 100 unit, but this is a whole story. So it's a really challenging piece of property. It's in a flood zone. There's been 2 other developers that have bought the property and tried to do this development and have not been able to get it done. So these apartments will actually be on stilts. So they'll be actually raised up off the ground so the water can flow. It'll be skirted, but you'll never see it. But the way that it's designed is not something that has ever been done in our town.
Wow.
So it'll be the first commercial project that's ever been put on stilts in our town. So it's, it's kind of one of those that project is going to be cool because it's never been done here. So, and then fast forward, I get into the 100 unit, when I was talking to the architect and the engineers, and even the pool designer and stuff, it was the same thing. As I said, guys, there's a lot of really, really big developers that's been in town for a long time. Mm-hmm. And they're well established and everybody knows who they are, but people don't know who I am. And like, I want this to be like my signature property. It's called the Arcadian. And so like when people drive by on West Battlefield, which that side of our town is growing substantially, the second Target is going in. I'm less than like a mile away from that. When people drive by this and they see the Arcadian, I want them to be like, oh, that's Josh's project. Like he took that land, they cleaned that lot up, and then they designed this building and they built this. And so it's very high end. It's got a rooftop bar area. Well, not a bar, but it's got a rooftop area where the elevator will go up and people will be able to hang out in the upside. I showed you the pool on it. It's a resort style, like triple level pool. It's got all kinds of lighting and stuff. And so I told the design team, like, hey, I want to push the limits on this. I want to design something that is luxurious, that maybe our town doesn't have, that might, I'm only renting 100 units, so it's like, I want to try to get 100 people that are like, I want to have this kind of upscale living. And so that's what I'm hoping to bring to town. Something a little bit different, something a little bit more unique that will kind of like put my stamp, as like, hey, this guy's a developer and he knows what he's doing, and so, that's kind of the purpose of the Arcadian, And Holland Park, which is the 36 unit, will be, I think, a unique development because, like I said, it's on stilts. So, I'm hoping to get a little bit of press on that, and I think we will. So
will that help with like the flood insurance and all that, or?
Yeah. So the way that we design it, like when you do a flood property, you basically, you design it out of the flood. FEMA gives you a certification, so like I don't have to have flood insurance.
Okay.
Because that's usually what kills it. And so originally when we looked at the property, I hired an engineer. We looked at this property, and we didn't think we were going to have to put it on stilts. We thought we could move enough dirt around, we could build it up, and we could just have like your normal slab on ground foundation and put the building on top of it, and was able to do that. But once we got into the actual engineering and looking at like the flows and stuff for it, they couldn't make it work. So we ended up just switching and putting it on stilts. Okay. And which honestly, I mean, at first I was like, oh man, this is going to be really ugly. Nobody's going to want to walk by and see like, hundreds of concrete pillars under their building, but we'll be able to hide it with landscaping and skirting and really like, you'll never even know that it's there. Mm-hmm. But from a structural side, it's really not something that's ever been done, and so that's really what kind of excites me. Something we haven't talked about is I've got a storage facility on the south side of our town that we finished building probably about 10 weeks ago, and it's 188 units of just outside storage. And again, that was one that we bought, was a really challenging piece of land. The topography on it was just horrendous. It had been sitting vacant for years, and nobody could get it developed. It's got a power line easement that goes through it. It's got a sewer easement, so we had to like position the buildings around the sewer. So it took a lot of design and effort to get that done. So I'm kind of more open to taking on those challenging projects, the finding the vacant lands that are a little bit more difficult to build and to do. That's like, I'm open to that kind of stuff. I like that.
Yeah, it seems like you're very creative with that, and you're very solution oriented, and you can figure out how to go about something that someone else can't figure it out.
Well, Jason, the truth is I feel like I don't have a choice. Like if you think about like Springfield and you drive through, and I know that like, you're not from Springfield, you don't live there like I do, but like there's not a whole lot of areas to develop. So the stuff that is left is challenging. You're either tearing down something and replacing it with new, or you're buying something else that nobody else has want to touch. Yeah. There, like I've kind of hit on, there are guys in our town that are 10 times, 100 times better at this than I am, that have way more money than I do, that have way more experience than I do, that could easily do any of these projects, but they look at it and they go, wow, that's, it's hard. There's some risk involved in that. Like, why would I want to do that? And I kind of feel like a guy like me, like that's what I have to do.
So with all of your developments and stuff, what's one of the best lessons you feel like you've learned?
Oh man. I learn lessons every day. I would think, I guess over my entire what I would consider like investing career and business, there's probably two things that I can reflect on that I can think like, hey, these are big lessons that I learned, or that I just needed to grow from.
Yep.
So I think, so first one would be, when I first got into real estate and I got really excited about like, oh, I just want to buy, and I had the financial ability to do that. And so sometimes I got maybe a little bit more like loose on running the numbers and stuff, where I'm like, oh, I'll make it work. Like, oh, it'll happen, because the emotion of like, I want to own this package deal, or I want to buy this property, and I want to do this, and I can get the financing for it, or I can raise the capital for it. I think I probably pushed the limit on some stuff. I bought a package deal from a buddy pretty early on. It was like 20 houses. And he was a good friend of mine. And he wasn't even a real estate investor. It was just a package deal that him and his wife had. And, I've known him for a long time. He's like, oh man, these are great. They're managed by this company. Like, you're not gonna have any problems, and it was my first deal that I bought that was over $1 million. And so I was like super excited. I wanted to do it. The bank was like, yeah, no problem. I got him to do a carry back deal for part of it. And I put part of the money down. And so I bought it, and then the package deal was a loser. I spent like $100,000 in deferred maintenance in like the first year. I didn't even drive through and like look at any of the houses. Like, the excitement of like, oh, hey, on paper, this looks good. I just didn't do the due diligence. So I have really tried, as I've grown in business, to like alleviate the emotion out of it, and just to strictly look at the numbers. And not look necessarily as much as at like appreciation and stuff, but as much as cash flow, because really what that comes down to is being able to cover debt service and expenses and that. So, I think that's number one. And then number two, if you want it, is probably undervaluing like what I bring to the table, like undervaluing like my value. As I've grown, I have a lot of people that reach out that want to partner. And I'm totally fine with that. Like, I've got a lot of different partnerships with a lot of different people. And I think I've always kind of underestimated like what I bring to the table. And so I think when I look back and especially like after I hired a CFO and I had somebody in-house looking over my finances and looking at my deals and stuff, like, he's like, man, you've really given away a lot of equity, or you've really, given away this or given away that, and I'm like, I don't know, it just always felt fair. Like, if you're going to partner with somebody, it's like, oh, it's 50-50, right? And so I've kind of really learned that I bring more to the table than what I realize. And that's always been hard for me to understand. It's like, I try to be humble and like, I'm like, I say all these numbers like, oh, I got all this real estate and stuff, but it doesn't register that way with me. And I don't know if that makes sense, but it's just, I try to stay really humble in that aspect. So I think I have given away probably too much in previous deals. And so that has been something that I've really worked on, is really trying to sit down and say like, okay, if it's the flip and I'm the money guy, or I'm the guy doing this, or I'm the guy that has the deal, like what value would I bring to them, and what value would that be worth, and what is a fair deal? And really what I've learned is that a lot of times, man, they agree with me. And so it's made it a little bit easier to put deals together, and then I end up with more equity in the long term, or a little bit better deal, or more cash, or whatever it is. So I'd say, two things is not buying deals or things off of emotion, and then really understanding like what value I bring to the table.
So do you feel like, because it comes so natural to you, is that kind of why you think you undervalued yourself? Or do you think that's part of the reason? Like, because you've done so many deals, so you'll kind of have the system and the process, and he's like, yeah, I'll just do 50-50 because it's just another deal, or
I think it just came from like, it just seemed fair to me.
Okay.
It's like if you're like, hey, I want a partner, like, okay, well, like typically partners are 50-50.
Yeah.
And so like I had a business partner, like, I told you before, like we started out, we were partners, we were 50-50 on everything, every deal that I bought, everything that we did, we were 50-50 on. And so then when we ended up splitting up, and I had people that wanted to do stuff outside of that, just always kind of seemed natural. And it's so I don't know. I don't really know other the reason why is it's just like I've always just kind of felt like, oh, hey, partnerships are that way. But then, when I started really deep diving into it and I start looking and it's like, well, and I don't mean this in an arrogant way, but as you invest and you get bigger, it's like raising capital is fairly easy. That's never been an issue that I've had, like coming up with the funds to put a deal together, whether it's my money or an investor's money or somebody else's money. So I think like when someone would come in and they're like, oh, hey, like here's this deal. I want to give you a couple $100,000 to do it. And I'm like, okay, like we'll just be 50-50, and then I do the design and the development and the construction and I build it and then I lease it and then I do all this work. And at the end of it, I'm like, oh man, they were never around and all they did was, write me a check for $200,000. I'm like, well, it was really easy for me to get $200,000. Yeah. So I started seeing like there's more value to the construction side and the development side and the fact that I have the staff and the team and the infrastructure to be able to do that. I think that's it. And then I always just want to be a fair person. I'm not greedy. I really, me and money have a very, I think, healthy relationship where you and I are kind of talking about this the other day, but like I don't chase money. Like I like the art of a deal. I like putting the deal together. I want my deals to make money. I want them to cash flow, but I'm never like, oh, I can make $1 million on this and buy a Ferrari. Like that doesn't motivate me, And so I think it's a little bit different for me because those are right now are not like, they're not my underlining motivations, So I think that's probably why it's a little bit different.
Yeah. Do you have any tips for our audience on how to start raising capital? Like maybe they haven't done it yet. Would you say they need to do some deals first and then have a track record and then from there they can start raising money, or what's your opinion on that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I started, I think just like any other investor with private money, so we were really fortunate. We had a lady that we started with that lent our first deal. And we did out of the first 2 or 3 with her. And then, then I would, as I'd talk to like wholesalers or I would talk to, guys like you or other people investing, I'd always ask like, hey, who's your hard money lender? And then, we'd kind of pass them around and I'd call and make connections and I would do all that kind of stuff. And really where it kind of changed for me was that after I kind of got a track record of doing it, then I would have like friends and no family, but like friends, or like friends, families and stuff that, I'd bump into and they'd ask me like, hey, how's the real estate thing going? And I'd tell them and, and they'd always say like, where are you getting your money? And I go, private investors, and then I'd explain, they say, well, I don't understand. Like, why would somebody give you the money? And I would just explain, like, hey, a lot of these people are uncomfortable with the stock market. They don't like the volatility of it going up and down. And if they got a couple $100,000 sitting around, which surprisingly, you start to find a lot of people do, I'd say like you can be you're the mortgagee on the thing. So if I fail, you get the property back. Yeah. You can make like a 10% return on the investment, and I can flip the money in like 90 to 120 days. So you make $3,000 or $4,000 or whatever it is in a short amount of time, and your money's always churning, and it's fairly low risk. And it's something that's tangible, so you can drive by, you can look at the property, you can call me, you can walk it if you want. And so I just kind of started like my first big one is I had a buddy that was like, hey, I got some money I want to do. And he gave me, a pretty substantial amount. And then actually another real estate agent's dad reached out and did the same thing. And so I kind of got away from like your typical private money lenders. And I went more to like private investors, and so I at one point, we were working with, I don't know, about $1.5 million of other people's money. And that worked really well. And I used it until I didn't need to use it anymore. Yeah. It was a great tool. So, I mean, I think if I was starting out, I would, and I didn't know anything about it, I think I would like immediately join the RIA group, which I'm terrible at. But I would join the RIA group and I would go to them and I would try to make the connections with other investors and wholesalers and people that are doing what I'm doing. And I would ask for contacts on hard money lenders. And I would just try to find somebody that would let me do that first deal. And then I would do everything in my power to make sure that deal goes as well as possible, as quickly as possible, and they make as much money as possible. And then I would just rinse and repeat. And I would just build that reputation of like, hey, I'm the guy that's going to get these deals done, and I'm going to do it. And then from there, you just keep expanding it, you know. Mm-hmm. And that's how I did it.
So would you get the private money lender to give you the funds to do the rehab as well, or just to purchase the property?
No, all of it.
All of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was kind of because I had such a background in construction, I understood how the contractors or the labor force works and how they're treated. And so I kind of understood, like, I need to be able to pay these guys on time and quickly. Right. And so the quicker that I can pay, and when I first started out, you know, like now I've got a whole team, you know, I mean, there's like 50 of us.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And so like I've gone from like when we first started out, I mean, I went to every single house every single day. On the weekends, I bought all the materials in a trailer and drove them around, and I delivered them, and I did all that stuff. Right. So like if a drywaller would finish drywalling on a Tuesday at 9 o'clock at night, I would drive out at 9 o'clock at night, and I would write him a check on the tailgate at the end of the night and pay him, right? Mm-hmm. And so I built this reputation as a guy that always pays his bills and pays on time. So they didn't have to get money. So when I would go to these hard money lenders, I would explain to them, I'd say, like, look, if you want to invest with me, I need the money for the house, I need the money for the rehab, and I'm not going to escrow it. Like, I'm not going to send in invoices and receipts and do all that stuff through the title company. You're just going to have to, you know, if I need to buy the house for 40 and I need 50 for a rehab, you're going to have to give me a check for 90 grand, and we're going to buy the house. I'm going to put the rest of the money in my checking account, and then I'm going to pay these guys as needed because I need the flexibility and the ability to pay then. Mm-hmm. And honestly, man, I there was maybe one or two people that gave me pushback on that, and I just didn't do business with them. You know, and I could always find somebody that was willing to meet those terms and that criteria, because really they didn't want to have to go through the escrow thing. I didn't want to have to go through the title company. And when they understood and realized, like, hey, this guy knows what he's doing, and every time he's borrowed money from me, he's paid me back. Why are we going to try to, you know, hamstring him and hold him back from doing well? So that was always very important. And this is, you know, I think one advice that I would give people that are looking for hard money is that, you know, like every person that ever lent me any money, I appreciate and respect more than they probably know, because it's honestly, it helped me get where I am. Mm-hmm. But you also have to understand too that they're making money off of this. Yeah. And so it's like, they have terms, but those terms are always negotiable, right? And the more that you do this, the more that you can negotiate some of your terms in your favor. Yeah. You know, I'd be willing, if somebody's going to give me all the cash up front and I've got control over it, I'd be willing to pay an extra point or two, because I can negotiate my contractors and material suppliers and stuff like that down on labor, because I could pay them immediately. Yeah. You know, I don't have to say, oh, hey, give me an invoice. I'm going to take the invoice. I'm going to turn it in the title company. The title company is going to get the funds. They're going to release it, and you can pick a check up in 3 to 4 days. Like, I'd say, hey, when are you done? 9 o'clock at night? Great. I'll be there. I'll pay you. Mm-hmm. That goes a long way, man. Yeah.
So we actually talked about company culture. Let's talk about kind of some of that stuff that you implemented with your company to create that culture. Yeah.
I mean, it's real simple. I just treat them like human beings, you know, and I know that it sounds like kind of just like arrogant or whatever, but like I came from the industry in construction, and most of these contractors are really good guys, and most of the time get treated fairly poorly. You know, and they're always like fighting for paychecks and money, and, you know, doing work that they're not getting paid for. It's not a glorious industry, you know, but I can't do it without them. And when you really get to know the guys, you really realize, like, man, they're such good people. Mm-hmm. And so I just kind of took a little bit of a different approach to it, right? And so, like, when I would hire a contractor, like I would always make this deal with them. I would say, look, I can keep you busy. You will never have to go look for more work, and I will pay you every single Friday. And in return, you're going to do good quality work for me, and you're going to do it at a reduced price because you don't have to go look for work. Yep. So when these guys, you know, they're running their crews and stuff, you know, they're not having to go out and bid jobs which, they spend 20 or 30% of their time trying to bid jobs, and then they have to do the jobs, they have to run and get materials, and then when they get done with the job, they have to get the client to come and look at it, and then they have to try to collect money. Or if you're on the big scale and you're a GC, you get retention held. There's just, you get paid out like 60, 90 days, where I'm saying, I'll pay you every Friday. And we do. And so I started doing that, and then we just started hiring guys in the house, bringing all that stuff in. And, and we do company barbecues and huge Christmas parties, and we go to lunch as a group, and we do all that stuff. And like, I really do believe that, I've weeded through a lot of people, but I really do believe that my team would go up against anybody. They're just great. And I don't have to, I don't know. It's so hard to explain, man. It's like, if I make a phone call and I say, hey, this house has to be done, like we've got photos or we've got it sold or we've got it listed, like the guys will work till midnight or they'll work Saturdays or Sundays, and I don't even have to ask it. I just have to say, hey, this needs to be done. This is part of it. Like they understand the bigger picture, right? And so that comes from, from me treating them like they're humans, because they are, and they're good people. In return, they respect, and I don't have asks like that a lot. So they know, like when I do say like, hey guys, I really need this done, like, okay, this is important, we need to make this happen, they do. So I don't really feel like I've done anything special to cultivate like a culture. You know what I mean? I've just treated these guys like how I would want to be treated. And even same thing with like my office staff, I've got a great office staff. And I know and understand that like I can't grow as a company and as a person if I don't surround myself with people that are top notch and with good team.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
what does believe in yourself mean to you? I use it a lot in my posts, and it's like I use it as my hashtag. For me, it means like you have to believe in yourself because you have to do difficult things in life, and you have these goals that you want to achieve. So if you don't believe in yourself, you're not going to take very much action, and you're not going to do all the things you need to do. So what would you say it means for you?
Yeah, man, it's super funny. I'm a fairly confident person. And my wife all the time tells me, she's like, your confidence just like disgusts me. All the time, man. I'm telling you, she's just like, whatever it is, I'm like, yeah, we can do that. And she's like, how do you know you can do that? Like, I'm just like, I don't know. I just do, And so I think for me, like, I probably look at like believe in myself as the same thing as like kind of where that confidence comes from.
Exactly.
Is, I think it's real simple. Like, I'm not afraid to fail at things, right? By any means. And I have failed a lot. Like we could sit here and I could talk to you for hours about other businesses and other things that I've tried to do, other adventures, other entrepreneur things, other things that have been losers that I have lost money in. And I just have not done well with, right? But none of that stopped me from moving on to the next thing. And I don't look at failure as like it doesn't scare me. Like I'm just like, hey, if I fail at it, I learned from something, and so I moved on, right? I just look at it a little bit different. I'm like, I just believe that I can do it, right? And if I don't do it, okay, I failed. So what? I'm gonna learn from it, and I'm gonna try again, or I'm gonna move, or I'm gonna pivot, or I'm gonna do something different, right? I am absolutely a huge fan of massive action. Like I feel like that's how I've got. I just all the time, I'm just trying to do this and this and this and that. And so I just always kind of believe that like, hey, I can do this, and so I have a little bit of a confidence in myself. And, I think a lot of it just comes from is because I'm not afraid to fail.
Absolutely.
So if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are you kind of mentioned your developments and some of that stuff, but what are some of your other goals that you're trying to pursue?
Yeah. So, for this coming year, I got a lot of goals. I'm like a list maker. Every night I sit down, or maybe not every night, but every morning before I do anything, I write out my day, what I'm going to do. I have like a remarkable tablet that I can email myself this stuff. And so I use that. I carry it everywhere that I go. And so when I think through things, I do that. So I also do that for quarterly goals, yearly goals. I break them all down. So for like this coming year, like you and I met because we joined this mastermind together. I've never done that before. That's something that's completely like out of my comfort level. Like I've always just been kind of like a head down, grind it out kind of guy. I've been to our RIA group one time. I'm not a huge like networker. Like I like one-on-one stuff like this, right? I don't want to go to like a networking group where everybody's got a name tag on and you're walking around. Like I hate that stuff, right? Yeah. But I also understand that it's like, again, as I want to grow as a developer in our town and as a reputable business person and entrepreneur, like I have to get out more. So that's kind of where like this mastermind thing kind of stemmed from, is like I need to step out of that comfort level a little bit and start to try to like network and meet more people, and especially like-minded people that are heavy hitters and there's a lot of people in our group that are way smarter than I am that I'm hoping I can learn a lot from. So kind of like that's one of them, kind of pushing myself out of that. And then a big one is like, and we haven't really talked about this. So like the way that my business is kind of structured is right now I buy these single family homes, we fix them up, and then I flip them. I used to keep them as long-term like holds, but now I just flip them and I use the capital to do the bigger developments like we were talking about. And so next year, like we've always flipped, about 40 to 50 houses a year. I want to do 60 of those. I want to try to increase that. I want to do 5 a month just so I can raise the capital to do some bigger projects in the coming years. So I really want to do that. So that's one aspect. The developments is another aspect, as we talked about. But then I also do property management. So I manage my properties in my portfolio. So all of my single family stuff, my storage facilities, and then all of my multifamily. But then I also manage roughly 300 doors for other outside investors. And so this coming year, I'd like to double that.
Wow.
So that's a pretty big goal for me. I'd like to do that. So, that's something that I know that like I've never advertised for it. I've never even really like publicly talked about like, hey, I want to add more doors to our management company. It's always just been
word of
mouth, other like-minded investors that that I'm friends with or buddies with, or the title company does a lot of business with, that thinks that that we would work well together. So it's always been that, and so, but this coming year, that's a big goal for me, is that I want to go from 300 outside doors to 600 outside doors, and then still manage my portfolio of my stuff, which will put us up to probably close to about 1,000 doors. In our whole portfolio. So that's my goal for 2024. So, and then social media. That's probably the last one, man. I am probably the absolute worst person you've ever met in your life when it comes to social media. I don't think that I've made a personal post in like 4 or 5 years. Oh, wow. I'm terrible at it. It's all, if you go and you look at my personal page, it's just stuff that like my wife has tagged me in or other people. And so I've got a lot of really good content. And I've got a full-time marketing person on staff that is really good at it. I've just never spent the time or energy to do social media, and I don't really understand it. I understand how to use it and how it works, but I don't know how to market to it. You know what I mean? I don't know how to like. And so for 2024, it's like I want to flip 60 houses. I want to finish these big developments that we're doing. I want to increase my property management company, basically double in size. I want to network more and meet new or more like-minded people like myself. I want to surround myself with people that are doing things at 2 and 3 times the level that I am. And then I really want to build a good social media platform. And I know that stuff like doesn't happen overnight, right? I know like the social media, I'm going to fail at it. I don't know how to edit it. Like I really don't even know anything about, I don't even know what app you would use to like edit a reel or how to make a reel post, which is crazy,
But you have the person that can do it. So that's kind of That's exactly what I've done is I've over time just found the people that know the stuff that I don't know or don't have the time for and got them to do the stuff that I'm not very good at.
Yeah, it's smart.
It sounds like you've kind of done the same thing, right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, yeah, there is a lot of things that I am not good at, and I know that. And so like that's really where my team comes in, is I delegate out the stuff that I'm not good at or that I can't handle. And then I try to just focus on what my strengths are and try to stay away from the stuff that I'm not good at, and so that's how I've kind of built my team. Mm-hmm. But the social media thing, like I said, that's a big one.
So is there something that's helped you to grow over the years? Like, is there something that makes you more successful than you used to be? Like maybe something you've learned specifically or anything like that?
Man, I think a lot of like my success, if you would call it that, comes from just being active, just doing things, right? In real estate, I have done everything I think that could go wrong, right? I have bought things at too high prices. I've misgauged, rehab budgets. I've misgauged rental markets. I've calculated finances incorrectly. I've hired the wrong people to do the work. I've taken on bad investors. I've rented to the wrong tenants. I've even I bought a house one time that the city bulldozed like 4 days after I bought it. So I bought a house and the city bulldozed it. Yeah. So when I say I literally have made, not every mistake obviously, but I have made so many mistakes in real estate. And as a business owner, hiring the wrong people, firing the wrong people, whatever it may be, I've made so many of those mistakes, and I don't forget those, and so I think that's, if anything that has propelled me it's just that I've done a lot and I've learned a lot from what I've done, and so I think that's where, I get a lot of people that I meet that are like, hey, I want to get into real estate. What do you want me to do? Like, how should I get started? I'm like, just do something. Buy a house, buy a rental, flip a house, partner with somebody, just do something. Because that's really where you learn everything is Absolutely. From being active in what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. I usually will I know it's kind of crazy, but I usually tell people that if they flip a house and they go through the whole process and they end up losing $10,000, it's still worth the $10,000 loss because you have all the knowledge and experience now of doing it.
Oh, absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, if you do it one time right, you can easily recoup your $10,000.
100%. Yeah. And then from there, you just keep doing it and repeating it. And then you do processes, and then you get people that do it for you. Yeah. And then you can focus on other things. And so, I mean, and that's really kind of like, what I was trying to hit on is I've made all of those mistakes and I've learned from those mistakes. And so I've just done so much, I mean, I've probably, in the short amount of time that I've been doing this, we've probably flipped 250 houses plus, and then, I've bought 6 or 7 apartment complexes. I've built storage units. I've built brand new houses. We've built apartments. We've renovated historic buildings, and in every one of those I've screwed up in some form or fashion. But I'm telling you, man, I don't forget that. And so then the next time that this problem comes up, I'm like, oh, I remember that, and so I don't make those mistakes. Well, that's not true. Sometimes I do, but usually you remember them. Yeah.
So what is do you have a favorite business book?
Yeah, man, for sure. I don't even know if you really call it a business book, but I actually just finished reading it. And you're going to laugh when I tell you this. But it's called Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter by 50 Cent. Curtis Jackson, the rapper. Mm-hmm. It is phenomenal. He is, I don't know if you're real familiar with him or not. But
not too much,
but so he was, early 90s, 90s to 2000s. I mean, he was huge rapper, mm-hmm. Sold 30 million records, which is a lot, and so he was really big in that, moved from rapping into producing TV shows. He's got a TV show on Stars called Power. And so he's really dominated 2 industries. Wow. And he's just done that. So he wrote this book. It's called Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter. And it's kind of his take on life and business and how to handle all kinds of situations. I mean, just from dressing, to impress people, to how to negotiate, how to just how to have power in the room. There's just so many good things that this guy brings. I would read it I would read it over and over again. Like it's a really, really, really good book. I mean, I've read all of the iconic stuff like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I've read all of the, I don't remember their names now, but the bigger podcast guys, all the books that they wrote when I first started, I read all of that stuff. I read the Burr book. I've read about every investing, I shouldn't say every, but I've read a lot of these investing books. And I don't know, this is by far one of my favorite. And he uses a lot of just elementary stuff, but I think that sometimes we forget, things that are, I don't know, like say like dressing up, that's something I'm really bad at. I've always had like the Zuckerberg approach to things where it's like I wear the same pants, the same shirt, the same thing every day, right? Because I don't want to think about it and it's easy and I don't really care. But really the reality of it is that I'm not Mark Zuckerberg. I'm not worth $118 billion. I haven't earned that right, So it's like those are little things that like as you're going through life that you think about, And so honestly, it sounds weird to say that, but like I didn't realize like how overly successful this guy was and how he's dominated so many industries. That is by far my favorite book I've probably ever read.
Wow. Yeah, I had no idea. I just knew, his music obviously, but had no idea he's a businessman.
Well, he is big time businessman. I mean, he's worth, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. It's unbelievable. And in multiple industries, so rapping, TV production, New York Times bestseller, because he's wrote this book and another one with Robert Greene. He's just, I don't know. When you start looking at like things like that, you're like, oh man, a guy that's been at the top of multiple industries. I don't know. I just liked it. Like I said, it's probably one of my favorite books I've ever read.
So what struggles are you encountering or have you encountered, and what are you doing to overcome them?
Struggles?
Yeah.
Oh my God, so many of them, man. Really, probably one of my biggest things is the growth that we've had. It's being able to stay organized and have systems and processes and things in place to continue to handle that growth. That's probably what I've struggled with the most. I'm really getting to the point to where it's like until we get some better systems down and I'm able to maybe delegate a little bit more or we can, find a little bit more automation to what we're doing, I probably can't take a whole lot more on than what I've got going right now. And I hate that. Like I have a certain level that I want to operate on. There's a certain level of customer service that I want to bring to like my tenants, to my investors, to my employees, to my team, and I'm getting to that point where I don't think I can handle anything else after this. So I know that it's like, okay, we've got to really deep dive and we got to figure out how can we continue to have the growth that we have and scale and do this. And so it's just getting systems and stuff into place. That's honestly probably one of the things that I've struggled with the most. I've been very hands-on. So it's when there's problems, I'm usually like, oh, I'll just fix it. I'll just take care of it. Oh, let me do this, and instead of just like, okay, how do we put a system in place so when this happens, we know how to correct it. They don't need to call me. They don't need to send that email. It's just handled, So I have the team very capable of doing that. We just have to make those corrections.
Yeah. So is there anything that you're scared to do, but you should do it? And is that it, what you were saying?
Social media.
Oh,
yeah. I wouldn't say that I'm scared to do it. I'm uncomfortable doing it.
Yeah.
I'm very like comfortable being uncomfortable. Like I'm not usually like one guy that's like afraid to make phone calls, and like everybody has those difficult conversations you have to have, and you have to do that. I'm okay with that, but social media makes me uncomfortable. I don't understand it. I don't know how to do it. And so I wouldn't say that I'm scared, but I'm uncomfortable with it, and so that's why that, and then also the same thing as networking, like we talked about before, like I'm uncomfortable with like this whole mastermind idea, it just seems weird to me, to have this group of guys that we're paying to be in this together. I know that I need to do it. I know that it's very valuable. It's just not something I've ever done before, and so those are probably two of the biggest things that I said, I don't know that I'd say scared, but I'm very, very uncomfortable. And so I'm trying to like push myself through those to really, so next year you watch my social media.
I mean, for me, it's the same way. It's very uncomfortable, but I know it's something that will help me to grow.
Yeah.
And so I'm basically forcing myself to do the thing I don't want to do.
Yeah.
So, same for me.
You have to as a business owner, man. I mean, as just a person, as a human being, as an entrepreneur, as an employee, as whatever. If you want any kind of growth, you have to push yourself. And actually, like, to go back to like 50 Cent's book, that's how his first chapter opens, is about fear, and about how like he developed a system to like where he was scared of things. He was just like, I'm going to do this thing that I'm afraid of until I'm not afraid of it anymore, and kind of desensitize himself. And I've talked to a lot of people that have huge social media followings and platforms, and post a lot and are very successful and I mean have a lot of ad revenue that comes in from it, and all of them have said like, Josh, I hate it. Like, I hate doing the content. I hate making this stuff. But you just get comfortable to hearing your voice and seeing yourself on there, and I do believe I have a lot of content and a lot of good content that people would follow. It's just a very uncomfortable thing for me to do.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're doing that many houses a year, you could start going through a bunch of them, and
you could do one a week.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, and I want to be able to show, like, it's really important for me to a big goal of mine, and we haven't really talked about this, is like, I want to build a company. I don't want to be a house flipper. Right? Like, I want a company that if my wife and I wants to go on vacation for a year, we can leave. And when I come back, the company is not only still in business, but it has grown and it has succeeded, and it can do it without me. That's something that's very important to me. Like, I want to have a very rock solid company that is very, financially sound, that will be around for a long time. And so that's really important to me to grow that aspect of it.
I'm the same way. I'd like to create, like, we try to make everything as passive as we possibly can.
Yeah.
So now getting to where we could do it without being there for a year, now I feel like that'd be pretty challenging, but I mean, it's doable.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to be the type of person that hires a CEO for my company, whereas a lot of people think, oh, I wish I could be the CEO.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And you're probably the same way.
Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, I would like to hire someone that handles the day-to-day stuff, so I can go out and just, like, really selfishly, I want to spend the time with the guys in the field, man. That's what I love. Like, I want to drive around the jobs, and I want to get dirty, and I want to look at the houses, and I want to shake hands, and I want to eat lunch on the job site with them, and I want to do that stuff while we're building, a 100-unit apartment complex. Like, I want to do that, and then I want to get phone calls to go look at new properties and to do deals and to come on your podcast and that kind of stuff. Like, I don't want to sit in my office and pay bills, and review insurance stuff, and, like, I don't want to do none of that. That's just fun. So, I mean, but we're just not to a point to where it makes sense yet to hire someone to do that. But would I? 100%. Yeah. Like, I would see, like, that, in the next year, 18 months or something like that, I would probably bring on, like, a COO, to run, kind of try to run everything. And then, I don't know about CEO. Like, I think I'd have to grow a lot to need something like that, but who knows?
Yeah.
But I'm definitely not opposed to it. And I mean, we would never leave for a year. I was just trying to, like, lead with a huge example. Like, I want to be able to step away completely and the company grow and succeed without me, because we've set such a good foundation and we have the right processes and stuff in place and we have the right team. Like, that's a goal for me.
Yeah.
I don't want my team to be afraid that if something happens to me, they lose their jobs. That's important.
So what's some advice you'd give maybe a young person that really wants to succeed in life, but they're really not sure, like, what direction they should go?
Man, I don't know. I didn't think I would be a real estate investor when if you would have talked to me when I was 16 years old, I'd have told you I was going to be a professional baseball player, or something along the lines of that. Like, I don't know. I mean, I kind of struggled through life to figure out what I wanted to do. And honestly, I real estate investing was not something that I thought I would end up doing. So, that's a hard question for me to answer, because I myself didn't know. Now, what I can tell you is that once I found it, I have fallen in love with it. Like, everything about what I do, I enjoy. I really, really, really love this. I love the building the buildings and, and then helping our communities and hiring the teams and finding the deals and meeting, other investors and business owners. Like, I feel very grateful that every day I get to wake up and I get to do that. But if the opportunity was not presented to me to do this, I wouldn't be here today. It was never a thought of mine that I was like, oh, I'm going to buy houses and flip them. Oh, I'm going to build apartments. Yeah. So I don't know that I'm a guy that can give you any kind of advice on how to find what it is that you want to do. I mean, I don't know.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So what legacy do you want to leave?
It sounds weird, but I don't know that that's something that's super important to me. Like, I want people to know, like, hey, Josh has been a developer. He's done good things for our community. He's bought houses that were condemned and blighted, that had vagrants and homeless people, and he's, one by one bought house after house every year and fixed it up and sold it to good people in our community. And he's taken challenging pieces of land and built nice structures on it and had nice housing. I really like kind of going back. That's important to me. Like, I want people to know that I've done that, right? Because I've worked really hard to do that.
Yeah.
But also kind of going back to like what I was just saying about the business. I think it's really important to me that I can leave something to my team and to my staff, as I move on, so I don't want them to worry that something happens to me, their jobs are gone, or like, cause a lot of my team works really hard, man. They put in a lot of hours. They really, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, as you would say, into the business. And I don't want them just to think that, like, oh, well, if Josh decides one day he's tired of this or he wants to retire, he wants to do something like this isn't here, right? Mm-hmm. So it's important to me. I think my legacy is I want to leave this business, if I'm gone, that is something that this team has built, that they're proud to be a part of, that they can continue to work at and grow and be, to be part of that organism. Like, I want to be able to leave that for them. But I do want people to know, like what I've done in our community. I mean, it is important to me. But I don't even know if you call that a legacy. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, I would say it is. Like, that's what you want to build it to, you know what I mean? And what you want to be kind of known for is, like, you care about your people.
Yeah, I do care about my people. And I care about our community, and so it is important to me that, that like we clean these houses up and we make, if I have kids one day and they may end up buying a house on the street that I fixed one up, and so it's like, that's one less condemned house on the street that a potential kid, one of my kids could live in, or my best friend's kids or somebody like that, and so it's just one more property that I fixed up to make our community better.
Yeah.
So, I want to leave it in a little bit better shape than it was when I was here.
How can people connect with you?
Well, I just told you my social media is not very good. Yeah. I mean, honestly, social media is probably fine. You can look me up on Facebook. I'm fairly, I'll respond to messages on that. I mean, I don't care to give out like my email or my phone number or stuff like that if somebody's really that interested. Facebook is probably the easiest. They can, I mean, I get like 10 ads a day. They can just add me on Facebook, send a message, and I usually respond to everybody. So Facebook's probably the easiest.
Do you have a final message for our audience?
Sure. Yeah. I'll kind of address more like the people that are wanting to invest, wanting to be business owners, wanting to be entrepreneurs. I really do believe that the biggest thing is just taking action, and maybe not just like small action, but like massive action. Kind of like Grant Cardone, 10x everything out. I have learned, as I've said, pretty much everything about business, not from my college degree, not from some of the jobs, but from everything that I have done while I have been a business owner, every mistake that I've made, every success that I've had, every relationship that I've cultivated, every relationship that I've messed up, I have learned from that, and it's been from taking action and being involved, being uncomfortable but still moving forward in things. That has been probably one of the biggest things that has helped develop not only my business but myself. And so I would think that if somebody listens to this and is like, hey, this is something I want to do, and maybe it's not even what I'm doing, maybe whatever it is, they want to own a restaurant, or they want to have a food truck, or they want to do that, it's getting out and just like, and doing it. It's like taking that action and making that happen, putting that first foot forward, and just trying to get stuff done.
Well, thank you guys for watching the Kurima podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video.